Nation. Today we're going to talk about Comeback America. Borders, language, culture, law and order. Cops were tough, tall, and mean. They had to pass strength tests and be above a certain height and below a certain weight. Churches were full on Sundays. Jewish temples were central to the community. Muslims were unknown. Women stayed at home and raised the children. Houses were immaculate. Lawns were green and cut. Nobody had more than one dog. Everybody spoke English. We all knew the names of at least 2 military generals. Homosexuals were not gay. They kept to themselves and their own kind. Teachers were respected. Troublemakers were kicked out of school. Marijuana was smoked by musicians. Heroin addicts were called junkies, not injection drug users. Street bums were confined to limited skid rows. Shoplifters could be beaten if they resisted arrest. Names of books were well known, even by the average person. When the chrome was thick and the women were straight, women wore dresses and skirts. Some even wore white gloves. Only the severe mentally ill went to the psychiatrist. There were no therapists. People just swallowed their pain and lived with it. Coffee shops served black coffee, to which you could add sugar, milk, or cream. There were no lattes. The wine was red, white, or Manischewitz. People had funerals when they died and were buried in cemeteries. Only the Chinese cremated their dead. A white sport coat and a pink carnation were worn to school proms. Boys married girls. They got pregnant. Abortion was illegal. Cars were loud and big. Men did not cry. Women did not box in sports. There were sports for men and sports for women. Trans people limited their proclivities to secret clubs and their private rooms. Come back, America. I want to go home. I followed this with Come Back, California, which I can't find. Oh, wait, I did find it. You ready for this one? I did. I was going through my old manuscripts last night, you see, after the spaghetti and the red wine. Another grim morning here in Northern California. It's been a long, long spell of gray, which I kind of like. It prevents me from having to go out and do anything athletic. That way I can stay inside and exercise my brain. Now, since I don't watch sports and I can't take the news, I just watched it. In between the ads for weight loss drugs and medical plans, I couldn't take it anymore. So I turned it off, had breakfast, and then I started to go through my manuscripts because a friend of mine who was out this week said something interesting. He said a lot of things are interesting, but he said, with the advent of AI and AI going to be writing a lot of the books, anyone who has actually written books by hand, the written manuscripts are going to become really valuable. Well, most of my written manuscripts are in the Bancroft Library here in California, which has the largest collection of Mark Twain writings in the world, along with very famous and some not known California authors. My writings, thankfully, are in there for good. And that includes the journals, the notes, the diaries, the manuscripts, the correspondence. But I kept some behind because I'm not finished with them. I've been working on this novel called Roses for, it looks like 5 years now. It started in 2022. It's gone on a while. Roses. It's like an ongoing story. And in it, I found this thing about California and Come Back America. I know it touched many of you when I did Come Back America the first time. How about Come Back California? What happened to the country and the city that I remember, that I loved? What about Los Angeles and San Francisco in the 1950s? The music, the culture, the pride that Americans had in their country. The veterans who loved their nation. The veterans who loved San Francisco. The veterans who loved Los Angeles. The visitors to San Francisco come to the city, go to the Mark Hopkins Hotel or the St. Francis. They'd go to dinner at Vanessi's on Broadway or DiMaggio's on the Wharf. They'd watch a musical comedy, ha ha ha, at the Curran or Geary Theater. Can you imagine that? The city of San Francisco was clean and beautiful. Men wore suits and fedoras. Ladies wore dresses and white gloves to go shopping on Market Street. Cable cars rang up and down the hills. Great films were made here. Dark Passage, oh, what a great one that was with Bogart and Bacall. Hitchcock's Vertigo, Kim Novak, Jimmy Stewart, George Raft, William Bendix, Richard Conte, Tony Bennett, and the Fairmont. The San Francisco Dashiell Hammett, Jack London, Monterey and Salinas Valley of author John Steinbeck, Jack Kerouac's Marin County, Gary Snyder, the Kingston Trio, The Hungry Eye, Come Back, California, Come Back, San Francisco. I bet you could write your own Come Back, Baltimore, Come Back, New York, Come Back, Chicago. Can you imagine where we've come to today? That we have an enemy of the state running the biggest city in the country, about to take office and turn it into a worse hellhole than it already is. After years of mismanagement, corruption, and Democrat rule, it's about to fall into the hands of a Islamist Muslim, communist to top it off. Come back, New York City. You won't know what hit you very, very soon. So as I say to you, and you say to me, that's the way it is. I don't know whether to read you anymore or say goodbye. Maybe this is enough. Sometimes short is better than long. Sometimes short is better than long. And right now, I don't think I want to read anymore. I wonder if this is going to have value 30 years from now. The handwritten journal called Charles Savage in this notebook that I wrote, and I don't know when. I honestly don't remember the origin. It's about, how many pages is this darn thing? 63 handwritten pages. The Journals of Charles Savage. I don't even know if it's fiction anymore. I don't know if I went to a whaling museum outside of Boston and found the actual journals of Charles Savage, or I made the whole thing up. I honestly don't remember. I can't recall. But it's here. It's handwritten. The Journals of Charles Savage. What does this say? May 25th, 1974. I just learned of Savage over a few beers in Suva, the capital of the Fiji Islands, during my first visit in 1969. My research on medicinal plants and other native practices regarding sickness, health, and witchcraft took me to the islands on 4 or 5 visits over a period of years, the same in number. I learned that cannibalism was practiced by these highly Christian people as near as 35 years ago. Some unlikely priest was eaten in the 1930s. And except for the report of a partial cannibalism of a 14-year-old girl's nose, recorded by a reputable but startled naturalist in the same decade, all manner of these practices have since died out. Remember, this was written in the 1960s. Prior to this century, cannibalism in the Fijis had taken on orgiastic proportions from an earlier time where the eating of one's neighbor had been ritualistic and quite contained, being a practice reserved solely for the chiefly classes. The abrupt shift had occurred sometime after a Caucasian shipwreck, Charles Savage, had taught some Fijian warriors at Bow how to use firearms. The increased slaughter turned to sport and eventually led to their devouring human flesh after every successful raid. Savage himself becoming depraved by the slaughter. Savage was shipwrecked off Nairi Island and died violently in 1808. No, he was shipwrecked in 1808 and died violently about 1813. There really was a Charles Savage. I'm only going to read another page. Now, it is difficult to conceive of so gracious a people as having once been envious of human flesh. The Fijian of today is the personification of hospitality, friendship, and honor. But then, the past is not always apparent in the present. My drinking mate, being only part Fijian himself, was not in the least reluctant to speak of these things of the past. In the company of pure Fijian people, it is never wise to bring this subject to attention. Would one remind a wealthy benefactor of the source of the fortune being politely given away? I finished my third Foster's that day and placed my straw hat back on to face the white sunlight of the afternoon. Having some research to do over at the archives by the governor's palace, I wished my companion well and began the pleasant walk along Victoria Parade. As I mingled with the strong black people in the streets, I could not help but thinking of being captured and cooked alive. Hopefully, I would have first been clubbed to death, back there a long distance away in some interior village in the mountains. Not so strangely, I found myself unable to concentrate on local medical practices. I asked the librarian for some ethnographies instead, physical and social portraits of the people as they were at the time of Savage's arrival about 1810. I was awed on discovering the patterns of facial dyes applied at the time in an out of print work, Fiji and the Fijians by William and Calvert, 2 volumes, London, 1858. How remarkably similar to the facial dyes of present day New Guinea Highlanders. The sense of evolution, however brief, struck deeply. Soon the strong, potent, related New Guinea warriors will be enticed into the art of serving cocktails to emaciated visitors. In place of shields will be trays, sullenness replaced by smiles, erect posture, feeble, humble bows. Oh, well, the passage of the primitive into contemporary Western notions of civilization has always been painful. Do we ourselves not experience similar pains when we are taught to become adults, a process that seems to begin right after the dawn of infancy? Becoming more fascinated by the thoughts of a more elemental time in the islands, I began my search for the story of Charles Savage, a search that took me through many islands in the group and many conversations. It is important to remind you here that this man did actually live, did actually encourage the events which are described, and did in fact eventually meet his own end as described. I am an anthropologist, not a novelist. If you will be willing to put up with the discord of misplaced words and lessen your expectations for good literature, the true events which you herein record at once depress and horrify you, but at the same time are enlightening. Several historians of Fiji make reference to this Charles Savage, but none have the complete story, which I eventually found in a handwritten logbook said to belong to Savage himself. I found the log quite by accident 3 years after I first learned of Charles Savage. Working with a medicinal practices party in the Osawa group, I quite naturally asked my hosts if they had any remedies written down. While most Fijians have knowledge of a few plant remedies and some the medicinal practitioners know many which are frequently employed, I always concluded my interviews by asking for a formalized list. On 2 or 3 occasions in my research, I have struck pay dirt. This way, having been the first outside recipient of herbal information preserved by the written word. While the oral tradition still prevails for passing on these medicinal practices, some of the more long-sighted Fijians of the past realized that only through the written word would their knowledge that had become theirs by the vocal tradition survive. So that afternoon, in July of 1971, I received my fourth affirmative reply, yes. The woman did have a long story of Fijian customs, but they belonged to her son who was away and would not return until the late evening. I think I'll pause right there. It goes on for 60 pages, and it actually is the story of Charles Savage. It's an amazing story. He did exist, and he was on a whaling ship that went aground off the islands. I even have the name of the ship. I actually know where the ship went down. It had 60,000 gold coin, 60,000, I think, gold dollars on it. I've often thought about hiring one of those teams that dives for treasures and come up with fortunes. Could you imagine if I put that together, and we went down there, and we actually found that shipwreck and pulled up those gold coins. I mean, this is true. I have the exact latitude and longitude in this book. I'm not going to give it out on the air right now. Maybe I will do something with it. Might that be fun for me? Joining an expedition out there to look for it, look for that sunken treasure. It's not in deep water, by the way. Oh, now I got some people's attention. I can guarantee you this is going to get to some of those divers who do this kind of stuff. So it's really the story of a white man who went ashore and found his way to Fiji. And then he introduced firearms from the ship to the Fijians. And the rest is history of what went on in the islands after those firearms. It got so crazy. The killing became so bad. Everyone was killing everyone. It sounds like LA or New York in a nightmarish version, where the gangs just take over and kill each other. And then it ended when the people got so fed up with Charles Savage, who they thought was a devil, that they tricked him into coming to a certain place on the islands. They held him by the feet and clubbed him to death and threw him down a well. And then they killed all of his offspring, some 40 children, the children he had with local women. They did not want the spawn of this devil in the islands anymore. It's a true story. And that's the story in a nutshell of Charles Savage, Shipwreck. And that, my friends, is not a piece of fiction. That's a piece of reality. So what else do I have for you? If you're listening this long, I guess you're still interested and you're kind of don't want to watch football or something. What else can I pull out for you to entertain you today? Nothing. What do I want to do to entertain myself? It's too cold out to go bicycle riding. I don't want to go out in this cold. I have an exercycle here in the house, which I absolutely hate. I just hate exercise for exercise sake. I just can't do it. It's boring. I have to entertain my mind while I'm exercising. I don't know how to do it. Let's see. I have the stripper, the glass girl, Tasahara Hot Springs, erotica play with a knockout, the glass girl. You don't have any of that? What's this called? This is old stuff. I've never published it. Here's one called Tiburon, never published. There's good things in here that some editor, if there was still an editor in the world, could put together a really fine novel. But hey, no one reads this kind of novel. It has to have sort of a Kardashian element to it, doesn't it? Doesn't have to look like a girl who was put through plastic surgery and came out looking like a space creature, some completely fraudulent Fugazi woman. Isn't that what you want to read about? What's this? Klein fights Jacobs. Innocence, the aphrodisia. That's a good one. Oh, that's from the depths of the writings. Let's see that one. I don't know if I dare read it. Oh, that's dangerous. Innocence, the aphrodisia. It's about a detective. I first came into this case. This was written in the 60s, in the 70s. I first came into this case when the chief inspector called me to piece together this battered body of that boy you read about, Joey Adams. They found him in pieces. His skull a jigsaw, only the demented bastard who took him apart could figure out, oh, I don't want to read this. But you see, writers go in many places with their imagination. This is interesting. I'm going to have to read this myself. I don't know. Maybe I have to burn this. Page 10, The Ladies from Hades. Was that a song? The ladies from Hades do march and sing with asses wagging and breasts bouncing. So coy and aloof, so pure and sweet. You'd think they're schoolgirls, not quite sirens. That's terrible. Oh, that's a guy in a bar singing that. I see it wasn't me. Well, it's a good story. I have to read this one later and see if it's worth your attention and worthy of broadcast today. Oh, God, it gets vulgar. I just flipped to page 15. I don't think I can read this one. It's funny, it's sardonic, but it's a little lewd. I don't think I can read it on air. I don't think I would be comfortable reading it on air, even me myself. Sunlight, the best stage light, but only when captured and trained through the velvet curtains. Oh, that's when the character goes to a strip bar to try to find the killer. I see. And what he finds in that little strip club that no longer exists down there. Okies, trailer parks, and orange moons, the anti-sword thrusting through everything. Cheap tea, they yell. Ankle C, ass F, bushmouth, hike it up. One feather flies, falling on every man's table. Exciting hope for fallen lust. Shut up and let me hear the music, roared a greasy-looking creep just behind Klein. F yourself with taco sauce. You'll feel better, retorted the poet, as he leapt up ready to hit and run, or run and hit. But Julie jumped in between the two combatants, gently nudged Klein away with her, and threatened to have Berg, the bartender, come over and eject the foul mouth if he didn't sit down and shut up. The glowering drunk stared at Klein, who stared back, then at me as I gave him oriental fish eyes, then over to the bar, where Big Berg leaned forward to meet his gaze. The guy just caved in and, muttering something, sat back down. Now extra excited, Klein increased his volume to match the song by the Police, backgrounding on the club stereo for the dyke who was dancing on the stage. This, I'll tell you what this is, Hal. It's a dream. What I'm is really a rabbi in 16th century Poland, and I'm having a nightmare where I question God's placing me there, in Poland, that is. This, he continued, sweeping over the dark club with his small, perfect hands, but emphasizing the man who told him to shut up, is just punishment to prove that studying Talmud and praying all the time ain't so bad. And this is just hell, Hal, not the wild, carefree world the cannon fodder thinks it is. The girl liked his little fantasy. She sort of gave him a friendly jab with the same hand she had brushed me off with, smiling, got up. I've got to work, Bobby, but let's have a drink when I get off at 7. Okay, I'll meet you at the door. No, I've got to go upstairs and feed my baby. How about knocking on my door at 8? Oh, yeah, good. I'll be there. As they were finishing their date, I focused on that blonde throwing herself around the white piano with her long legs around one of the piano legs. She rose and fell to an imaginary lover, her Nordic beauty perverted. Okay. I enjoyed the Police for the release. Their crashing rhythms gave me and felt real good. In fact, able to forget those little corpses for the first time that day. Klein is loud, I thought, but never bombastic. And he's loud only within the dynamics of the situation, like a great early jazz drummer, Art Blakey. As I drifted off in thought and drink, I saw a bottle coming straight down at my head. Moving into the blow, and beneath it, I sort of surfed, and catching the dude by the sea, I pushed backwards with enough force to deflect the blow, but not harsh enough to dismember him, and threw him to the floor, the tables crashing. Berg came over to bounce the two of us. Klein, apparently on good terms with him, made it known who the culprit was, while the ice dyke danced coolly on stage above the piano. Since he was helpless, groveling at the floor, holding his privates and moaning, we all three took him by the arms and dragged him to the curtains leading to the street. As we heaved him out, I felt the cold fog cut through my sweater. It was suddenly refreshing, the change from sunlight in the early afternoon to the dark club to cutting fog. That was the pleasure of a San Francisco summer, the changes. Well, that's an incomplete story called Innocence, the Aphrodisia. It will go back into the box, and it will be sold at auction by my heirs 50 years from now. I'm joking. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Probably throw it in the garbage with everything else, the clocks, the bronzes, the paintings, the clothes, the photographs. Nobody wants anything. Nobody wants anything. I don't blame them. So that, my friends, is it for the day. I have no more to entertain you with. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of a respite from the vicissitudes of Sunday on Thanksgiving weekend, when it starts to set in that the holiday you look forward to for months is over. And what's next? Well, there's always Christmas to go through that again. And then what? The drop off again. And then what? There's nothing, some long 6 months until what? Memorial Day, 5 months. And then July 4th, and then the cycle starts again. Oh, well, we'll see what happens, don't we? All look forward to what's happening. Okay, folks, I've had my fun. With your listenership and God's will, I shall return. I meant to do a God talk today, but in a way, that was the God talk. Why wasn't that a God talk? Why does God talk have to be preachy and prayerful? Why can't it be a piece of weird fiction from 30 years ago? Why can't that be a God talk thing about a detective who's looking for someone who killed a kid and has to go into the lowest levels of San Francisco's streets and society to try to find the killer? Why is that not godly? Don't real detectives do God's work, trying to find the guilty ones? No, I think so. I just got here and you want to leave. That's just messed up, Mike. Tell the pizza story. I don't know what you're talking. Oh, him again. What a pain in the neck this one is. I keep blocking this putz and he keeps coming back. Go away, Nicodermo Scarfo. You're nobody. Stop blocking my site with your stupidity. See, there he is. Okay, I block him again. I just get some morons. There's nothing you can do about them. They think that they're smart by being stupid. Hey, Mike, do Dead Man's Pants. Hey, Frank, sing My Way again. Hey, Frank, sing New York, New York, Frank. Is it true you really had a big schlong, Frank? Is that true? Is that what came out in the paper today? That's something that Paul Anka said about you. And then we find that Paul Anka has a biography coming out about him. I mean, isn't it true? What PR agents, my God, are they smart? If ever there was a devil incarnate, it would be a public relations agent who could make you read a story about a singer you forgot about. It's 84 named Paul Anka, and I'm talking about him because he said that Frank Sinatra really was endowed, but not as big as Milton Berle. And then by the time you get through reading it, you find out that Paul Anka has a biopic coming out on Netflix. Okay, what a country. Come back, America. I want to go home.